All right, guys, I want to talk about the dangers of people trying to make and change gun laws that know absolutely nothing about the firearms and what actual effects would really change anything in the world or in the United States today. So here we have a president that has set records for signing executive orders, who before claimed that that was what a dictator does, because you have to have the House and the Congress. Any man that sits before a country and signs orders into law, that man would be the equivalent to an old-style king in a kingdom. And we don't have that anymore. To a dictator. Hitler-esque type times. But there is a big danger with this. People that know absolutely nothing, like I said, don't know an arm brace from an umbrella handle, want to tell you what you can and can't do. And this is the one that really gets me, because this is the one where Joe Biden keeps hitting on. He keeps saying 100-round drums. Or he keeps saying guns that hold 100 rounds of ammo. Do you really need 100 rounds of ammo? Who needs 100 rounds of ammo? Well, to this I would say, who needs a Hayabusa motorcycle that does 200 miles an hour on the highway? Do you need that? Who needs 100 proof liquor? Do you really need 100 proof? Who needs a 5-bedroom home when you only have 2 children? You see, you got to be careful here, because when the government steps in and starts to control things, they can move on, overreach, and can start controlling everything in your life. So if you're not a gun person and you don't like guns, just know that the next thing that's coming is the things that you love and you like and you want to do that's going to be restricted. Because I believe it could get to that point. And see, the only thing is about homes and alcohol and about cars and motorcycles that do 200 miles an hour, those aren't in the Constitution, but our firearms are. So they are even more protected. It would be easier to ban a motorcycle that does 200 miles an hour because it's not written in the Constitution. There has only been one shooting in history that I know of where somebody used a 100-round magazine, and guess what? You want to know what? That 100-round magazine jammed and put the guy out of commission. This is why you don't put people in charge of looking at gun rights that know nothing about guns. Anybody that knows anything about firearms would know that having 100 rounds underneath of a rifle that already weighs six or so pounds makes it unwieldy, harder to aim accurately, harder to maneuver around and to move with. And in my mind, most of those 100-round mags are just novelty items. They're not something I'd seriously use. Look, if 100-round magazines worked so well and were so good and worked as killing machines, why doesn't anybody in any of our armed forces across the board get issued 100-round magazines for AR-15s? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And there's a reason for that. Because it's much better to have 30-round magazines and to have a chest rig on with more magazines that you could put in there than it is to have 100-round drums that they can't carry through the field or carry on their back or put in mag pouches. Or, like I said, even maneuver around in combat, let alone those things are the most prone to jam. I mean, there are some good ones out there, but if we're going to talk about what's prone to jam sooner, and you put that up against a 30-round magazine, the 100-rounder will lose every time. So the reason to do this is to slowly take it away to where, oh, we just want this. But you see, this is never enough. If we gave them 100-round magazines, I don't buy them. I've never owned one. I never want one. But I'll tell you what, I sure will never be for you taking them. Because when they get that, and then there's some kind of a shooting or some kind of a gun scare or whatever, they're going to say, now, I see there's 40-round magazines. Who needs 40 rounds? Then they're going to come for your 30-rounders, and then pretty soon you're going to be going down to where you're limited, like some other countries that even have ARs left, to a 10-round or a 5-round magazine. That's the goal. That's the goal of it all. Here we have what they call a major pandemic. Places going out of business, places locked down, them telling you to wear 2 masks, them telling you if you get the shot, you still got to wear a mask. Travel restrictions, and then try to take our firearms rights while the border sits wide open with whatever people coming in that have whatever COVID or whatever else coming across this border. People sneaking in, drug cartels. That's who it's benefiting the most. Drug cartels and child traffickers and anything you can name. In fact, they're getting incentives to come here. You come here, you're going to get the stimulus check. You're going to get a motel room. You know why? Because Biden's trying to be politically correct. And political correctness, if done to an extreme, will ruin a country. Because what will happen is you will start to pick people and use people based on race and gender other than people that has the most skill for that job. And when you start filling positions looking at anything other than skill on paperwork and not even worrying about what color the skin is or what gender or anything else that they are, that's when you start getting into problems, because everything starts to take a hit because you didn't hire for the best person for the job. You hired for the best color of the skin. That's what you did. There was a couple of serious dudes just not long ago that thankfully got caught coming across the border illegally that were murderers and rapists, had all this long history. Luckily, they were caught when they came across the border. Think of how many's getting through that don't get caught. Right now, the border facilities are up 700%. The reason Biden won't go visit the border is because he knows all these camera and media would go with him. He can't go visit the border because it may show what's going on. People are literally laying on top of each other in little thin foil-looking space blankets. I've got pictures of it. And another reason Biden don't want to go down there is because Biden cares nothing about these people. He couldn't care less. All he wants to do is act politically correct for his base. We know that Biden and his party was always the party of Jim Crow. Biden said when it went back years and years ago when his children were in grade school, he didn't want blacks and whites going to school together because he didn't want his children going to school in a racial jungle. That is on TV. You can look that up right now on your computer, him saying that. He gave the eulogy at one of the Ku Klux Klan leaders' funeral. Last name was Byrd, B-Y-R-D. Look that one up and fact check me. So Jim Crow Joe Biden was always the party of racist and racism. But he's trying to use things for his advantage right now, any way he can, to look like he's the good guy. Now, like I told you before, always remember that gun control started to disarm blacks. When the slaves were freed, and whatever arms that they had at that time, they after they freed the slaves, they thought, well, wait a minute, we can't let these people be armed. So they started to do things and started to want to make laws and do things to restrict everyone so that the few that they don't want armed would be disarmed. And this still carries on to today. This is why the Democratic Party is always the party of gun control, gun restrictions, gun rights. That's why they are always the party of that side of the coin. Because you see, if you just blanket it over everybody, you're going to disarm the minorities as well. Can anybody give me any factual data from the FBI Crime Center that would tell you how many shootings, killings, and murders would be avoided each year if we banned the 100-round drum? Most people that I know that have ARs don't even have these. I can't even think of anybody offhand right now that has a 100-round drum. And I know a lot of people. Like I said, It's to take anything, reach out and get anything you can, because the next time we'll just go in for something else. We'll say, well, that's not enough. Now we need this. Now we need this next. Now we see there's a 50 rounder, a 60 rounder Surefire out there. We need that 60 rounder Surefire because there was one guy, because after we banned the 100 round drums, there was one guy that used a 60 round Surefire magazine in a shooting. Didn't matter if it jammed or if he only shot 10. We're going to hold that up and use that as a model to now ban a 60 round magazine. And then pretty soon they're going to come down to where you're down to 10 or 5 rounds allowed in a rifle. I'll leave you with this thought. These bureaucrats that don't know the first thing about firearms and coming in and wanting to make laws and change laws would be the equivalent to you boarding a plane and me going and getting a random guy at the grocery store, putting him in the cockpit and saying, I want you to take these pieces of black tape and I want you to put this tape over controls in here that you don't think that the pilot needs, and we're going to cut them out. Any of these switches, any of these buttons, any of these levers that you don't think that a pilot would need on this 747 that's full of passengers, you put this piece of black electrical tape over that and we're going to remove it before the pilot takes off. That is literally what we're talking about when you see these bureaucrats, pencil pushers, that's never done anything but sit in an office and get paid off of our money that we elect to serve, not rule. We are the ones in control, not the government. Always remember that. This country was founded on limited government. Somehow this got flipped around during the ages. We are supposed to rule and control the government, not the other way around. They are elected to serve, not rule.